The Junkers Ju-86 was one of the most unique aircraft of World War II. It started its career as a bomber, but its early use in the Spanish Civil War showed that it was inferior to the Heinkel 111. Satisfied with the trials of the new prototype, the Luftwaffe ordered that some 40 older model bombers be converted to Ju-86P-1 high-altitude photo-reconnaissance aircraft, with pressurized fuselage, no armament and a crew of 2. The cockpit structure used multi-layer plexiglass glazing, the space between which was filled with dry air. The crew entered the cockpit through a round hatch located below on the starboard side. The prototype took off in February 1940, and in March it reached an altitude of more than 10,000 m. This aircraft could fly at an altitude of 11,000 m for more than 2.5 hours. The proposed combat flight plan included a climb of 11,000 m 45 minutes after takeoff. After that, the flight continued at this altitude, at a cruising speed of 345 km/h. At 200 km to the target, a slow climb to 12,000 m began. This height was reached 100 km from the target. The fuel supply consisted of 1,000 liters, which provided a 4-hour flight. In the summer of 1940, one of the aircraft was transferred to the secret unit of the High Command of the Luftwaffe, led by Major Theodor Raoul, for military trials. The unit, often called the Raoul Group, provided strategic reconnaissance for both the Army and the Luftwaffe. After the war began, the squadron grew to 3 squadrons, each with 12 aeroplanes. At its largest, the unit comprised 200 to 300 men and approximately 50 aircraft. With the beginning of the invasion of the Soviet Union, 3 squadrons of the group were transferred to the Eastern Front, and the 4th remained in the West and continued to conduct reconnaissance from extreme heights. By mid-1942 a pressurized bomber version was also available, and flew about a dozen nuisance raids over southern England. After the RAF mounted a special interception squadron using modified Spitfire Mk9s, and one bomber attempting a raid on Portsmouth was intercepted on September 12, 1942, no further flights over England were attempted. But why spare the British if flying over the territory of the Soviet Union was even easier? Which, in fact, the Luftwaffe did until late in the war. A typical incident was mentioned in a secret Soviet state security report. On August 22, 1943, from 8 hours to 40 hours 10 minutes, the enemy carried out reconnaissance of Moscow and its environs with one high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft at an altitude of 12,000 m. An enemy aircraft was detected at 7 hours 42 minutes. The aircraft was in the fire zone and in the Moscow region for 1 hour 30 minutes and 3 times passed over the city center. To intercept the enemy, 15 fighters from the Central and Kubinka and Nukovo airfields were simultaneously lifted. Of all the fighters raised, only one Spitfire could fire at the enemy, being 500 m below the enemy and 200 m behind. The pilot used 450 rounds of ammunition, after which the machine guns malfunctioned due to icing. Due to the large difference in altitude, the Soviet pilots could not intercept the intruder. Anti-aircraft artillery fired on the enemy, due to the inaccessibility of the height. The fighters available in the special Moscow Army Air Defense could not gain the necessary height for the battle. The armament of the fighters turned out to be unprepared for firing at high altitudes at low temperatures. The possibility of the enemy dropping small bombs during similar unpunished flights over Moscow, like in Britain, was not ruled out. Despite the fact that the enemy has been conducting unpunished reconnaissance of Moscow at a high altitude for more than a year, the question of high-altitude fighter aircraft for the capital's air defense has still not been resolved. This is how the report ends. The previously mentioned unpunished flights of the Junkers Ju-86 over the Soviet capital and other cities continued until June 1944. We can say that a huge number of maps were made with the help of this special aircraft. All these maps fall in the hands of the U.S. intelligence in the final days of the war. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and to make sure you don't miss my future work, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and press the bell notification button. Thank you and see you in the next video.